Hey, deserving listeners, I thought I would read articles related to Love is Blind that were published before episode 7 was published on Netflix, if that makes any sense, because that's where I am right now. So I did a Google search by articles that were published prior to episode 7 being published so that anything wouldn't be spoiled for me. So let's get into it. This first article that I found on Google, I mean, a lot of the articles are just like, there's drama this year, and it would probably just be kind of a recap or something. But this is a Los Angeles Times article, and I think it's about Patrick and Anna, so let's check it out. All right, so scrolling down, there is some recap stuff that we don't need to review, but there's an interview with Anna, which I'm really curious to read. So it says, how would you describe your Love is Blind experience? All right, so the beginning of the article is just a recap, but later in the article they interview Patrick. So they ask him about his experience, and he says it was transformative. He didn't really know what he was getting into. He's glad he did it. And he says it made me break free of a lot of things I was dealing with and learned a lot about myself. Overall, 10 out of 10, A+ experience. Yeah, I mean, that's consistent with Patrick's demeanor, and it's good to hear because, you know, he went through some things. I presume by the point he's being interviewed, he was informed about. By the way, I emailed my contact that worked on this season and asked her a bunch of questions. She has emailed me back, but I'll make another video in which I'll review what she said. And then they ask about the application and about insecurities about being Asian American. For me, applying was more like a dare. I was talking to my cousin. My cousin's an Asian man in Colorado as well, and we both grew up as the only Asian kids in class, so we have some understanding of where we're at. He was just like, dude, I think that you would be a good representation on the show. And I was like, dude, I don't even watch reality TV. I don't really want to do it. He's like, no, I think you should try. Obviously, we weren't talking about the Asian masculinity thing. We already look at our dating apps and how we're not getting much traction. That's where it started. We tried, we applied, I got onto the show, and then got to exercise the insecurities and then exercise the confidence and see where it was going from there. In real life, in my environment especially, I don't think I would have gotten any of those dates. We're talking about all those girls. I would never have gotten a single date with any of those girls on the date. I don't know. I don't know what community he's in, but I'll just say if he was in Seattle, he wouldn't have any problems. So I don't know if it's just trees that he's barking up or his community, or maybe I'm not aware of things. Anyway, maybe one or two. So, you know, he's just like, oh, it was so nice to actually be able to date people without people rejecting me. Now, we don't know why people would. Maybe his Tinder profile sucks. Now, of course, racism is a thing, and the phenomenon of Asian men having a hard time is not new. But I don't know. The way that he talks, it just seems like it's impossible for him. And he was just happy that, oh my God, you know, because they don't know what I look like, these 15 women or 16 women are actually going on these dates with me in the pods. It's upsetting. And then you can really hear his voice in here, you know, like when he was like, oh, Casey, she's sick. I mean, have you met her? You got to meet her. And he says, it was magical. It was a magical experience. You'd have to be there, but it was just a magical, transcending moment. Day after day, it was like, damn, this is pretty dope. Yeah, that's very Patrick. All right, this is kind of interesting to hear his experience. Basically, what he's saying is that at the beginning, being on the show was kind of funny, kind of cool, and he was thinking of it kind of like a game, you know, where, okay, let's see how this works, you know. But then he says midway through, he started to catch feelings. He's saying these women started to catch feelings for me, and things started to get serious. And then he started actually thinking, oh my God, like, what if this is the one and we get married and we're together for, like, we'll have this experience. This is like when we met. It's just interesting to hear him talk about that. Because I think we have this false notion that everyone goes on the show just like raring to go, they're 100%. But it would make sense to a lot of people, especially those who aren't really aware of the show, because he's saying he wasn't aware of the show, that you would go on and think like, well, it's sort of a lark. Who knows? Maybe something will work out, but not likely. And the intensity of the experience would, sweep people off their feet. All right, and then they ask him about the breakup scene with Casey, and he is reflecting back on it and saying nice things about Casey, but also he's saying, yeah, looking back on it, oh, she was trying to break up with me. That's not what she said. And then the interviewer asks, she was straddling you at one point. I could not make sense of what was happening. And he's saying, I was thinking the same thing. All right, and then he confirms that he was really into Anna, and he felt like Anna was really into him, and he was on his way to proposing to her, but then she bounced. All right, this is an interesting response here. He's saying that he had a breakthrough, not only about feeling confident that someone could love him, even though he's Asian American, but also he says that he had some really deep unhealed wounds that Casey had triggered for him, and it really hurt him. And he's saying, I credit her, and I credit her participation because I don't think it would make me who I am today without her, just from an emotional perspective. So he's a really nice guy because he could easily blast her, and he's not. He's thanking her for hurting him, so it helped him to progress forward. I imagine it's a pretty complicated experience for him. They haven't asked him when he figured it out. Maybe they can't ask him because they'll tell us on the show at some point, but he's basically saying he pieced it together in his mind, and it kind of sounds like that was the last time they saw each other. And then she went to bed and he went to bed, and he's just like, okay, well, I guess we're not on the show, but we're still engaged and going to get married. And wow, she's really into me because she was all over me when we were there. And then at some point later, I asked my contact on the show about it, so maybe we'll get more information. I assume we will. All right, that's the end of that article. The rest of this episode, I'm going to look at some other articles. I'm going to have the rest of this episode for members. My one-off episodes that aren't me reacting to the show are going to be just for members. So join me in the member zone. Otherwise, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.